All right, guys, thanks again for joining us. This is Cat's Pajamas.
And this is Pain User.
Yes, Pain User has joined us for game number 3 here, so we're glad to have him on. This is game number 3 between our purple Terran player here at the 3 o'clock position on Terminus. He is FXOqxc. His opponent at the 9 o'clock position is our pink Protoss player, Flashback. And just to recap you guys real quick, Flashback did take game number 1, a very, very passive 21-minute game played on Xel'Naga Caverns. QXC went really quickly up to 4, I think even 5 bases at the end, but because he kind of missed his timing window, wasn't really able to take the game. Then in game number 2 on Tal'Darim Altar, I think QXC was on like 7 bases when they ended up clashing or something like that. At 200 supply, playing another very, very passive game, wasn't able to do any sort of dropping, and Flashback unfortunately had a little bit more poor positioning there, so we are once again on a gigantic map on Terminus, so I would expect nothing less than what we've seen so far. Par for the course, another long macro match.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Definitely favors that passive style of play on this map. Although, I mean, you can get aggressive, you can make things happen on this map, but it's certainly not a map that I would go for that type of play on. QXC definitely favors that very harass-oriented style, though. I'm surprised that he played a super passive game 2 and tried to match him in that regard. Usually he can make things happen in terms of economic damage, and he's got a very good killer instinct, and he's super aggressive, almost hyper aggressive. He can rely on his micro, and he can just make things happen. So I wonder if we'll see that same style out of QXC again this game. Maybe he was adapting to the first game and adapting to that super passive style that we continue to see from Flashback.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it almost made me look like a fool. If someone had never watched StarCraft before, didn't know who QXC was, watched game number 1, saw me go on and on about multi-pronged drops, harassment, multitasking, and then saw that game, they think I was a fool. But nonetheless, that's okay, as Flashback is going to find his opponent cross-position here pretty soon. So, yeah, I mean, everything really set up for a nice long macro game once again. Looks like QXC dropping down the no-gas fast expand under 1 racks, and Flashback did a 1-gate fast expand on Tal'Darim Altar, if I remember right. Yeah, and wouldn't be too surprised to see him do that again.
Yeah, he will almost definitely do that on this map. It's very common. Sometimes people will 2-gate FE, but I think 1-gate FE is safe on this map. You'll even see some players Nexus first. That's something Axlav likes to do a lot, but he's much more familiar with that build, and he has the timings down really well. It's definitely not something you can just execute off the top of your head without practicing out the timings, because you need to be able to deflect various types of rushes, and sometimes it's very difficult to do that if you don't have the timings down. But with a 1-gate, you get your Cybo core up before the Nexus, you start getting that Warp Gate upgrade, and your second and third gateways should finish right around the time any kind of pressure is headed to your front door. So generally you can hold off most types of pressure, especially if the Terran is expanding, which QXC obviously is, and going up to 4 racks right now. Still no gas out of him, so we may see a mid-game push with Marines out of QXC. That's a really good tactic that a lot of players use just to keep the Protoss player honest. If he does like a 1-gate FE and then tries to tech straight to Colossus or something like that and skimps on gateways, skimps on gateway units, you can really punish him for doing something like that by applying some pressure with, you know, your first 15 to 20 Marines. So hopefully he does that just to keep him in check, and at the end of the day you can always back off before getting force fielded or losing those Marines.
Yeah, that's pretty close to actually what he did in game number 2. This is actually the exact same build he did on Tal'Darim Altar, and he'll probably go up to 2 gas here after about a round or 2 of Marines, and then drop down 2 add-ons and just do a few Marauders and do a little bit of pressure. But yeah, I mean, this is almost identical to what we saw out of game number 1. Flashback was even able to kill 2 Marines in game number 1 on Tal'Darim Altar without losing a Stalker. Put himself in a pretty good position in the beginning of the game, but wasn't really able to take advantage of that, as you know, he never does anything overtly aggressive, so he just kind of sat back and macroed after that, which is not, you know, a bad solution, as it kind of made QXC's subsequent push a little less powerful. But I don't know. I mean, I just wish I would see a little bit, a tiny bit, a hint of trying to throw QXC off his game, because QXC going after that under 6.5 minute third expansion, or second expansion, third base altogether, and once again going to content himself with a super, super passive build.
Yeah, on this map though, you do essentially have that free tertiary third. It's really nice to take that relatively early on in the game. He does have to be careful of a stalker run by here. SCV does get picked off building the bunker, and he's forced to actually cancel that bunker. Definitely not what he wanted to do right there, but he'll still be okay. Flashback's not... He doesn't have an offensive pylon right now, at least not right outside of QXC's base. He does have more units coming across the map right now, though, but he's not going to be able to accomplish anything here. Maybe when those reinforcements get there, he might try for a run-by or try and apply some more pressure, but those bunkers very well positioned by QXC, and it looks like Flashback is actually going to try and go in a little bit here. I don't know if I agree with this at all. I don't see this succeeding whatsoever. QXC has more than enough Marines to deal with this, killing those Zealots right off the bat. One Stalker might go down, one Stalker does go down, and I mean, I don't know what Flashback was thinking there. There's absolutely no way you're going to break that with 3 Zealots and 5 Stalkers.
Yeah, absolutely. We were hoping he was going to be a little bit more aggressive, but certainly not in this way, not engaging against those sort of static defensive structures. So Flashback actually reinforcing with more Stalkers. He's going to push in again. I mean, he's not going to be able to do any damage, especially because QXC has those nicely positioned SCVs sitting there. Looks like one SCV does go down, but at the cost of a Stalker. Doesn't even get a second one. May get a Marine. No, he actually doesn't get any more Marine kills either. So he is kind of just carelessly throwing away a couple of units here. He's not expanding behind this. It's not like he's able to deny the further third base out of QXC, so he's not really gaining anything with this push.
Yeah, definitely not gaining anything. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if he was actually cutting probes for a little bit there. Not only that, he was focusing on his micros so much that he might have been lacking on his infrastructure, might have been lacking on his supply. We don't know, but he is currently supply blocked right now. Whenever you're paying attention to an attack like that, you're obviously, not paying attention. You're diverting your attention from all the tasks that need to be going on at your base, and when you're not accomplishing anything with an attack like that, it's definitely a waste of time. You need to be very careful about how you spend your time and effort, and I don't think that was worthwhile at all.
No, absolutely not. And QXC is just going to further cement his position in here. And, I mean, a little does he know, because I don't think he has been able to scan. Let me actually take a look and see exactly what QXC is seeing after this little harassment goes away one more time. Let's take a look at what QXC is seeing. Okay, he has seen the expansion. He has not tried to scan down at the third or anything like that. Looks like we do have an SCV inside of the base there, though for Flashback. So let me bring back everyone's vision there. So he does. He doesn't quite have a conception of what Flashback was doing there for a little while. Looks like QXC is actually going to push out with a monster force. Flashback now is going to have to bring in as many units as he possibly can. He does have enough sentries to go ahead and force field off that choke point there and hope and seclude some of those units. If he can separate that force in half, that's going to be his hope at defending this. But QXC moving in now with that powerful push. Here it comes. Looks like more reinforcements coming in now for Flashback, mostly going to be Zealots to absorb some damage, hopefully behind that force field pressure. There he goes. Here comes QXC right now. He doesn't have Stim done yet. It's actually about 8 seconds before Stim finishes, and that is going to allow Flashback to actually kill a lot of those units. He is even going to pursue doing some damage with that Colossus as well. Finally, Stim finishes, and QXC is forced to stim away.
I don't know if I agree with QXC stimming his entire army to get away right there. I don't think he was in jeopardy of getting force fielded again. I'm pretty sure he was in the clear. He could have turned around maybe one Marine and forced those Stalkers to all stop and fire at it for a second, and then he would have gotten away in the clear. But stimming his entire army right there before medevacs get out, and he is going to start producing a ton of Vikings here to combat these Colossus that are already out on the field. Hopefully he does get some medevacs out before producing those Vikings. He does have 1-1 on the way, so he is taking a pretty sizable lead in the upgrades right now. 2 forges on their way in for Flashback, but still has not started those upgrades. He will finish his Colossus range, however, before the next fight. And, QXC a little bit Marine heavy right now. Still hasn't found a way to utilize those Marines. And once enough Colossus get out on the field, those Marines just become less and less effective. They're great damage dealers, but QXC is pretty much producing all Marauders at this point. So he is kind of equalizing the Marine Marauder count. He's also getting the Mobius reactor, so we are definitely going to see some ghosts out here in a little bit. But Flashback not using that many sentries and not teching to Templar, so...
Yeah, QXC is still doing variations of the same build that he's done the first 2 games, and it was actually Viking count that really knocked him out of game number 1. He actually way overproduced Vikings at game number 1. He only had 1 medevac for his entire force, stimmed in, and Flashback saw the amount of Vikings. I think there were like 22 or something like that when the engagement finally came against just 4 or 5 Colossi, and Flashback said, fine, all right, I'll let you kill my Colossi, and he just targeted down QXC's ground forces, and QXC was forced, he was forced to land his Vikings. There was nothing else he could have done. So game number 2 actually came back and produced a perfect amount of Vikings, so hopefully he doesn't overcommit this game around. But this is still the exact same army composition we've seen out of him, and truthfully Flashback in all 3 games here. So no real deviation in the sort of strategy, the high-level strategy that these guys have been using this entire set.
I almost feel like QXC might be over-expanding a little bit right now. I mean, he's taking his 4th is already taken. He's taking his 5th right now. At the same time, Flashback is kind of allowing this. QXC has full map control. He has a presence on almost all the Xel'Naga towers, including Flashbacks. So he does have control over all those. He has vision over the entire map. Feeling very safe right now, and probably just going to rush to 200, max out as quickly as possible, and then he can actually afford to throw many of those units away, especially since his production. If we take a look at his base real quick, let's see how many Raxes he's working off. Not as many as I thought. If you're working off 5 base, he's definitely going to want to add a few more Raxes into the mix here, but he does have Weapons 2, Armor 2 on the way right now. Flashback actually managing to catch up a little bit in the upgrade table, was probably chrono boosting those forges, and he does have 2-2 on the way right now, and it looks like he's going to try and move out to the middle of the map and at the very least take his Xel'Naga back.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to be able to do that with relative ease. Here he comes now. Looks like the DT Shrine coming down at about the same time that he has in any of these games. The double forge is the only variation, the only real variation we've seen out of Flashback thus far, as he had been working off of 1 forge basically the entire time. Looks like another Nexus coming down, though, for Flashback, so he himself is going to a 4th, but QXC has already finished up his 5th. Is he transferring over some SCVs? Yes, he is. There go 9 making their way over there. Planetary Fortress coming up, and I guess he's got about enough money for it. No, he actually is producing another command center somewhere.
What are our worker counts right now?
Let's take a look. Worker counts are at 74 to 69. That's about the same level that they've been at for both our players this entire set of matches, so no big surprise there. Looks like command center number 6 is on the way, and QXC, he is going to, wow, he actually takes a little bit of damage from a DT there, does drop down the scan, takes it out, but both our players are almost maxed. Flashback just needs 1 more warp of units. He is putting up another 4 gateways. That's going to give him 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. He had 17 last game, if you're curious.
So. Wow, that's pretty impressive. That's the Hasuab's style of play right there. Just when in doubt, add more gateways. And that does allow a Protoss player to build up quite a bit of minerals. He can establish that trust fund that we're always talking about, and then he can really spend that immediately after a battle. If you have 17 gateways, you can spend 1,700 minerals every time you have a production cycle on just purely zealots. I mean, you can also make whatever you want. You can make stalkers, sentries, so depending on what type of mineral you are banking, you can spend all that so quickly after a battle. And both players approaching max right now. 3-3 on the way for both players, so relatively even on the upgrade table. QXC does have the better spread right now, though, and he does have control over the middle of the map right now, but Flashback does have an observer out there in the middle of the map, so he can see everything that QXC is up to. And I'd love to see some DTs out on the map harassing for Flashback right now.
Flashback has used these purely for army composition and defense this entire set, so he hasn't really done any overt harassment with them. QXC has had quite a bit of detection up, but I think there was only one time I remember seeing a DT actually make his way in. Oh, it looks like Flashback is going to blink in, picks off 2 Vikings there, and QXC doesn't do a ton of damage there, unfortunately. It looks like he is just going to position himself back for the time being. He's putting up another 2 command centers, though. I wish we could bring up unit tab just for command centers, because I'm pretty sure they're floating everywhere on the map. Looks like another one heading down to the bottom right-hand corner. So he is going to be on a ridiculous number of bases. He does have that 2-2. Looks like he is just waiting for 3-3. Finally, we have Reaper speed coming up as well because he's about running out of upgrades to research, given this army composition that he's kept. Here comes Flashback, though. Flashback throws down the Guardian Shield. He's going to make his way in. A couple of DTs in this mix. Those Vikings are trying to jump in and do a little damage, but unfortunately, they just can't quite yet.
Yeah, Flashback pulling out right there. I kind of agree with that. He would have been attacking into a very, very sticky situation. Probably would have ended up on top of that planetary at some point. Those two bunkers, definitely not the optimum situation to attack into. It would have been very hard pressed for him to win that fight. We do have Reaper speed on the way for QXC here. It will be done in a second. And I love the usage of late game Reapers. I think it's so great. There's such an amazing harass unit, especially in the late game, though. If you can afford to build up a pack of 8 to 10, you can run around sniping nexuses, sniping pylons, cannons, upgrade facilities. QXC losing a few units right there, trying to take the Zelnaga tower back, and it looks like Flashback is actually going to press in here now that he has these Archons, and he's just going all out, not really getting a very good arc, and EMP's going down on his entire army. Colossus are getting dropped by the Vikings, and this does not look good for Flashback at all.
No, not at all. He does have still a better ground army composition here, although this, while similar to game number 1, it looks like QXC had plenty enough Marauders left over to go ahead and defend against the remainder of those units, but with the subsequent follow-up, whoa, wow, look how many charge lots he warped in at the same time right there. So
replenishing those Colossus is going to be so difficult for him, though.
He's only producing 2 at a time right now. He's only got the 2 Robos in play. QXC is just taking as many bases as is physically possible. Looks like Flashback wants to move back in again, so here he comes. All of those Vikings have landed, though. They're not going to be the most cost-effective unit on the ground. Nice EMP, though, and most of those Zealots are down completely out of their shields, so that's going to give QXC a small chance to stabilize as he does put up another 10 Marauders, 2 Marines, and 2 Ghosts at the same time, so he is working off of a significant number of racks at this point.
Yeah, interestingly enough, though, Flashback was actually able to reinforce so quick with all those gateways. He really has an opportunity to make a pretty aggressive push here somewhere should he choose, but I think he's giving QXC way too much time to replenish his army, reinforce, and really get himself back together. He had a small window right there where he could have pushed at the very minimum to the north end of the map and killed that expansion up there, but right now, QXC just has so many command centers all over the map. He can afford to lose bases anywhere he wants, and he has so much money. He's just banking more and more and more resources. Looks like he's not going to make a transition into BCs or any kind of super expensive unit like that. He's just going to continue with the bio composition. He's adding Ghosts into the mix, continues to produce these Vikings, and he does have good upgrades on the bio, so I have no problem with him staying on the ground for now. And it looks like Flashback going in again here, but playing very timid, doesn't want to overcommit, and blinking all of his stalkers into QXC's bio. I think that was a huge mistake. He lost a bunch of stalkers right there. The Vikings I don't think he has enough Vikings to 2-volley the Colossus, though, so needs to really build up that Viking count right now, but he's actually producing medevacs.
Yeah, this is a pretty good back and forth right here. Neither player really establishing dominance, and the biggest thing is that neither player seems like they want to take control of the pace of the game. Both seem very wary about forcing the issue. Looks like Flashback is going to get in, do a little bit of damage to that command center, try and force those Vikings out of position, but QXC playing very patiently. He's just going to float back the command center, and he should be just fine. So
I wonder why he hasn't PF'd that second CC there.
I don't know. I guess he eventually wants to use it for another base somewhere, but he's got so many at this point.
Like
he can just, but that's the only possible reason I could think of, because he's just not doing anything with it at this time. Oh, here comes Flashback, though. He's going to engage, and QXC is caught a little bit out of position, but he had a natural concave setup that was so effective. Looks like QXC is actually going to take out the Colossi so quickly, but these charge lots got in there. Unfortunately, they were covered by the command center there for a little while. It looks like they did some significant damage, but I believe that QXC is going to have enough. Oh my god, but look at how many reinforcements Flashback has, just pushing in one more time. That EMP in conjunction with the planetary fortress actually helping to neutralize quite a few of those Zealots. So good damage being done, though, by Flashback nonetheless, and he is going to take out the rest of those forces, and he's still reinforcing so quickly.
QXC forgetting about his entire air army, losing so many Vikings and medevacs right there for free that he really needed to hold on to, and I don't see how he's going to be able to hold this off. I mean, Flashback is just reinforcing with so many gateways right now, constantly flooding in more and more warp gate units. QXC not able to keep up in terms of production. He's microing his heart out right here. He's scrambling, producing out of everything that he has, and actually a bunch of reinforcements pouring in right there for QXC, able to hold that off, but he has lost his position in the middle of the map. He has lost his initial fourth. I mean, he has a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh at this point, but he does lose that base, and he can't afford to lose too many of these expansions. It looks like Flashback has he's sniffed out the northern expansion. He's headed up there right now. He's probably going to take that out, and I really don't see anything QXC can do about this. He just has that lone planetary fortress there. He is going to lose these SCVs, is going to lose this command center. Maybe QXC will try and go for a counterattack here when he realizes all these units are at the top of the map, and actually preventing Flashback from killing that expansion by moving out on the map is QXC. Very well done by him. He needs to hold on to his expansions at this point in the game, and we do have something headed to the south to harass QXC's expansion. Oh, we have 2 DTs and 2 Zealots. Is there any detection at either of these bases? Oh no, this is going to be terrible for QXC. He's going to have to burn so many scans here.
Yep, and it looks like one scan does go down. The planetary fortress is being healed. The forces for Flashback try to get back in there, but QXC immediately moves himself back, and QXC is actually maxed one more time. So here we go. Here's the full engagement now. Flashback is going to make his way down. At the same time, QXC is going to start making his way out, though. He's got a number of Vikings. He should be able to engage pretty favorably against that force. I don't believe that Flashback yet realizes, oh, he should by the pathing on those SCVs, that there's another base down at the bottom right, but he doesn't realize it quite yet. QXC going to make his way in. Gotta watch out. A blink there would have destroyed his entire Viking force there, but here come the charge lots. They're going to start making their way in. Those DTs are actually ripping through that force of QXC, but now QXC doing a nice job of microing, stepping back. He does take out a lot of those units, but the Colossi did hold against all of those Vikings, and QXC loses his entire army and is forced to GG.
Oh my goodness. I really did not see QXC losing that game. That's kind of impressive by Flashback. He has a very slow-paced, reactionary, passive style, and it looks like it really works for him, and definitely not matching up well to QXC's style. QXC obviously tried to adapt to that super passive style of play, said, you know what, I'm just going to try and take every base on the map. I'm just going to completely out-macro him. There's no way that he'll be able to beat me with that super passive style of play, but Flashback just taking things one step at a time that game, being very careful, didn't really lose any major engagements, and won 2 pretty major engagements that I think was able to get him the win.
Yeah, I really want to try and get inside QXC's head there, because even on game 1, and this goes back to, because, you know, obviously most people are very familiar with QXC's, you know, very, very aggressive, normally very, very aggressive play, but I wanted to know how familiar he was with Flashback's play, because even in game number 1 on Xel'Naga Caverns, he was at 4 bases in under, I think it was 14 minutes or something like that. Very, very, I don't want to say aggressively expanding, but that's about what it amounts to. So he had that mindset from the very beginning, and that's, wow. I mean, Flashback played so well against that.
Yeah, he really did. Although, I mean, I don't know, theoretically, QXC, you shouldn't lose in that situation. I mean, you're up, you know, 6 bases to 4. You're in a great position. You're both maxed. I think the problem there was that he was trying to play versus the Protoss army heads up, as opposed to doing double drops here, triple drops there, which he really could have afforded to do. He could have afforded to even lose drops if he wanted to, but the risk reward on a double or triple drop, say somewhere in Flashback's main, is tremendous, and there was virtually no drop harass. And whenever you try and engage the TOS army 200 straight up, it almost never goes well, unless you get those preemptive EMPs. You have a great spread, great positioning. You engage with your Vikings first. Your Vikings pick off a few Colossus. I mean, there's so many things that have to go your way for a battle to snowball in the Terran's favor, and he wasn't able to get those situations this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, QXC just wasn't doing a great job of spending his money there at the end either. Only had 13 active barracks against his opponents, 17 active warp gates there at the end, which we saw were warping in constantly. And he had another, 7 ready to go turn into warp gates there at the end as well, using his money very, very effectively. So congratulations to Flashback. Guys, if you have enjoyed this set out of the IPL, please do check him out, IGN.com/IPL, or as IGN Pro League on Facebook, Twitter, Justin TV, and YouTube. And if you've enjoyed Pain User Nice Commentary, please be sure to check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/catspajamassc2.
And you can find me at twitter.com/painuser.
So don't go anywhere, guys. We have another exciting set coming right at you. Be back in just a second.